Today we're going to build a federated graph and deploy it to Grafbase using the GitHub integration. In this example, we have two subgraphs that we will publish to our federated graph. The first subgraph is called products. It has a product entity and a products query that lists our products. Let's go ahead and start up the local dev server of the products graph. Let's go ahead and open up Pathfinder and query our list of products, which looks good. Okay, now let's go ahead and look at the reviews subgraph. The reviews subgraph has a review entity and it opens up the product entity to add a reviews field. We also have a top level reviews query to query reviews. Now let's go ahead and start the reviews subgraph locally. We'll open up Pathfinder and let's query our reviews here, and we see 3 random reviews coming back as expected. Okay, so now that we have our 2 subgraphs running locally, let's go ahead and start our gateway. Here you can see that the local gateway starts up and then it composes product and review subgraphs successfully. Now let's go ahead and open up the gateways Pathfinder and let's query price, title, description, but also reviews and rating for each product. And you can see here we've now successfully queried products and related reviews using a federated graph. Now let's go ahead and deploy to production. I've already created a GitHub repo and I've pushed up the code to it so that we can go ahead and deploy it to Grafbase. Let's start with the gateway. Here I'm going to go and import from GitHub and I'm going to search for the same repo. And I'm going to call it just gateway, and let's go ahead and make sure we use the right folder of the monorepo, which in this case is apps gateway. Let's go ahead and deploy it. And while we wait for that, let's go ahead and deploy subgraphs as well. So we'll do a similar thing as we just did, but this time I'm going to call it products and make sure we use the products folder. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the final subgraph. Reviews, and let's go ahead and deploy that. Okay, so now we have 3 graphs deployed to Grafbase. This is the gateway we have, and here you can see a graph reference, gateway at main. This is the main branch of the gateway. Now let's go ahead and publish the 2 subgraphs to the federated graph. So we'll go ahead and copy the host name here from the product subgraph. And using the Grafbase CLI, first we're going to introspect the URL to make sure that there is in fact the correct schema, which it looks like it is. So, and we can use that to pipe it to the Grafbase publish command. I'm going to go ahead and publish this to the gateway graph, and we're going to give it a name of products. The URL is the one we just copied. So let's go ahead and do that. And that was successful. Great. Now let's go ahead and do the same for the reviews subgraph. Let's go back to the UI and then we'll pick the reviews subgraph and then let's copy the endpoint URL make sure everything looks good. Yeah, this looks good. Okay, so let's go ahead and pipe this to the Grafbase publish command, and then we're going to give it a name of reviews, and then we have the URL we just copied. Oh, I forgot to include the reference to the federated graph, which is under my hobby account, gateway. Okay, this looks good. Now let's go ahead and open up the gateway graph inside the dashboard, and you can see here that we have two published graphs here. You can look inside the changelog as well, so you can see first we published the products schema, and then we did the same for reviews. It looks good. Let's go ahead and run a query to make sure that everything looks good in production as well, which hits both subgraphs. And yes, you can see here the same query we did locally now works in production. Great. Now let's go ahead and try to update one of the fields of the product subgraph. So let's open up the products graph, and then let's go ahead and try to add, let's say, a SKU field, but let's go ahead and make this uppercase just to see how if that works. And then let's go ahead and open up the resolver as well and add a SKU string field to the product interface. Okay, so now we're going to use something called schema checks. Schema checks is a feature of Grafbase that enables you to check if the proposed schema is going to work to avoid breaking changes in production. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and run introspect dev, which will introspect the local dev server. And here you can see that the SKU field was added successfully. Let's go ahead and run that again, but let's pipe it to the Grafbase check command. And then we pass in the gateway reference, and then we're gonna pass in the product's name here, because that's what we're checking on for. Here there's a warning that, or a linter complains about. It says the SKU field should be renamed to SKU lowercase. So let's go ahead and do that. And try again. All right, this looks good. Operation checks is another feature of Grafbase that allows you to enforce that no one can change or remove fields from the graph if it's been used in a set time frame. In this case, let's go ahead and set the default of 7 days and make sure that if at least one operation has happened to this field, then it should block it. So let's go ahead and enable this for the main branch, and let's go back to Pathfinder and see here, okay, we had the price and the title description as our query, and you can see here in the analytics feature that we do have some traffic here to the products operation that includes this field. Okay, so now let's go ahead and remove the price field. And then let's go ahead and run another schema check. Here you can see that the price field was removed, but it's still being used by clients. So this will not be allowed to be published. And if you look inside the check screen, you can see all the failures here. If you open up here, you can actually see that the product price field was rejected because of the operation checks being enabled. So let's go ahead and uncomment this again. Run another check, which is successful. And if that looks good, we can go ahead and let's create a branch here. Let's do add SKU. And then let's commit this. add SKU field. And once we push this, we can then open up a pull request. You can review everything in here, looks good. Let's create the pull request and wait for this to finish. If you go inside the Grafbase dashboard again, inside the products graph, you can now see that we have the add SKU branch in here. Now, here, this is the add SKU branch of the products graph. Here you can see the deployment is completed, so let's go ahead and open up the schema. And if you look here, we now have a SKU field as expected. And just like that, we've now successfully created a federated graph using the Grafbase CLI, SDK, and GitHub integration. Thanks for watching.